So today I'll be discussing, some of you have moved a higher stage with your research the research proposal. Some of you have completed writing their research proposal, and now you're at the stage of data analysis. So during this session, I will demonstrate how you analyze your data. Today, the main focus, I will focus on quantitative data, which is data from questionnaires. Then I also record another video where I will demonstrate how to analyze qualitative data. I hope you remember our questionnaires, the examples of the questionnaires on our topic, which we are discussing, the topic of coronavirus, the risk of getting COVID-19 in quarantine centers. So if you remember, we had two questionnaires, one for quantitative, which had closed questions, and which are for a questionnaire, where we have got, in terms of our objective, we had demographic factors, we have environmental factors. I didn't take all the factors, but I just took the demographic and environmental factors just to demonstrate. So let's say you've designed your questionnaire, you have finished designing your questionnaire. You then go and start asking people, this is your questionnaire, which you then administer. Remember, as I said, the best way for you to administer your questionnaire, you have to administer it yourself. You don't give it you don't ask the person to answer the question themselves. But if you want to get quality data, you administer the questionnaire yourself. So let's say your sample size, or the number of people, returnees, or people with the risk of getting COVID, you want to ask, they are 20. It means you have to print 20 questionnaires. You have to print how many? 20 questionnaires with all your questions. You then go and ask 20 people your questions. So you ask your age, you ask their sex, you ask, the marital status, level of education, all these things. Based on what we based on the issues, based on the type of questions. But in this case, I just took, as I said, the demographic and environmental factors. So it means at the end, remember, we were discussing about sampling. That's the sample size, the number of people you want, and we said for quantitative, you need to do at least 20. Around 30, 30 to 50 questionnaires. But for qualitative, you need around five or so, study participants. So if you're doing a quantitative end of a questionnaire, you have to ask 20 people all these questions. And for depending on your research and your objectives and what you want to collect. At the end, you will have 20 sheets where you are filling everyone, age, whatever, all these questions, depending on your question. Before you proceed with data analysis now, what we are supposed to do, you are supposed to create what we call a database. What we call a database. So how do you create, one of the things which is missing here, which is supposed to be at every questionnaire, I didn't put it, and that's very important. You need to make sure at every questionnaire, you need to put like in a unique number to identify each person, and each participant should have some unique number. So there's a unique ID. So if you see a questionnaire, every questionnaire, you should have a unique identifier. Then it's also wise to make sure that in every questionnaire you put the dates of data collection, date which you collected the data, so that you can identify your questionnaire. So these things, they are not part of, they are part of the questionnaire, but you need to make sure every questionnaire it is a number which identifies it, and the date in which you collect the information. So the next thing now, After you collect all your questionnaires, and then after you create all your questionnaires, and you have created all your you have collected data from all your study participants, the next thing before you do data analysis, you need to create a database, and it a database where you can now enter the data for your where you can now enter the data for your questions. So I'm going to demonstrate how you enter. So a database is like a mirror, and you are putting your questions now into a database in a summary form. So I give an example. In this case, I'm using what is called Microsoft Excel, and these are cells which you use. I know I'm not here to teach you about Microsoft Excel. If you want to know how Excel operates, you are free to attend some of these courses. So in the Microsoft Excel, when you're creating a database using Microsoft Excel, so I want to going to create a database. So like in this case, we said every questionnaire should have a unique ID, and every questionnaire should have a unique ID. So I'm now changing that questionnaire into a database. Then the next column after that is the date of, remember you usually date of data collection, and you create a database of the variables now, and of the variables in your questionnaire. So the next variable is age and sex and marital status. So we put age, then sex, then we put marital status. You can write in full or in short because you want the rows, they are not marital status. Then we go again to the next question, level of education. We are creating a database on the level of education. Then I'll leave some of the things. Then number of rooms, and I will not put all the questions. So rooms. Then what else is here? Sharing toilets. I also put sharing, and maybe I can S toilets. Yes, me I know which is sharing toilet is what. Then the next question is sharing bathing facility. So I say sharing, maybe bathing. I write sharing bathing. So these are my questions, which I have written, and usually they should have numbers. Like this one is the first question. This one, date of birth, maybe it's the second question. Then age is the third question. Then sex, that's 4, is the another, and then that's the other. Then marital status. So you number your questions. Question number 5. Then level of education, you number question number 6. Rooms, number of rooms. That's question number 7. So you number your things. Then sharing of toilets, question number 8. Then bathing, that's question number 9, whatever. So these are my questions. So I've created my database, and with the questions, and it is summarized. I'll then take my questionnaire now, the hard copies. I start entering data from those questionnaires into that. So I'm going to just assume, and that's an example. Let's say this is the first questionnaire. So for that first questionnaire from one database, that's the unique, maybe is the first question 001. What was the date? Yandakatora, maybe ndakaisa 10 August, maybe 10, maybe ndakaita 1 June. Ndoko ndakakolekta makwesini yangu ese, anditi 2020. What was the age for that? Maybe inga in 20 years. What was sex? Maybe it was female. Marital status, married. So I'm now capturing. I'm now capturing what is on my questionnaire onto my database. Level of education, it was primary. Number of rooms, what is the question? The question is how many were you in a room? And the number in a room, maybe there were 5 in a room. Then sharing toilets, yes. Sharing toilets, yes. Bathing, sharing of bathing, no. That's the first questionnaire. I go again, I get the next questionnaire number 2. I end date, maybe the date is the same as this, and maybe the items, whatever date. Then age, this one was 35 years, maybe was male, was single, and it was single. Then primary, that's the level. This one maybe was secondary. Hello, Kimando Fonere. Oh, so this was secondary. Then the number of rooms for the number of rooms were 6 in the room. This is secondary, and the level of education. Then number in the room, maybe Ingar 1 in the room. Sharing toilet, no, they were not sharing. Bathing, yes, they were sharing. Then I get on the next questionnaire. Questionnaire number 3. I enter the date. I put the date and the date of that person. Then the age, which is maybe they were 60 years. They were female. So I'm entering my questionnaires now into my what? Into my database. Then they were married also. Their level of education maybe was tertiary, depending what I was putting in my this. In number in a room, there were 4. Sharing toilet, yes. Bathing, they were not there. They were no. Then I go again. Questionnaire number 4. I'm entering what is on my questionnaire. And the date, I put the date and the age. It was maybe this one was 45. And then it was male. And then marital status, maybe single again, whatever, depending on the questions. Your thing is primary. Then number of rooms, I got 1 room. Sharing toilets, or they were sharing bath, they were sharing. So you do this whole process and you are capturing all your questions for all your questionnaires. If you've got 30 patients, it means you are creating your database with how many you capture all the questionnaire from the 30 people, and it 1, 2, 3, whatever, up to 30, and you capture all these things. Feels better. So make sure the way you then capture, you're capturing and all your questions, your questionnaires now into a database. When you have captured all your questionnaires now, you have captured all of them in your database, you can then now start data analysis, and you can now start analyzing your questions. Remember, by data analysis, we want to see, and we want to then see in terms of age. So the age is a quantitative variable. So we can start summarizing our things, and we can start summarizing our things. How do you summarize age? Usually, you can say, and usually for age, and it is a continuous variable. There are several ways in which we can summarize age. We can say in our results, results which are our findings. We can say on our thing age, about age. How do we summarize age? We can now write if you see panapa, this is Excel, it can show you the sum of this is 160, the average age is 40. So you can say the age of the patient, and the average, the minimum age was 20, the highest age was 60, then the mean age was 40 age, which is average. And so you can write your sentence about age. The minimum age or whatever, the minimum age was 20 and the maximum age was 60. Then the average age. And these are your results. We are now discussing we are now counting. Then you go again on another variable. It's you who know your variable. Sex. In terms of sex, your results. You are summarizing your results. Sex. Two were female, blah blah blah, and then two were whatever. Two were males, and you can put percentages, and you can put percentage. This is 50% of the 50% when are males. Then another 50% also was females. You are now describing your things. Remember, upper your variable is a continuous variable. So how do you do it? Average, I think average was 40, and it was 40 years. Was 40 years. But can I remember now? And these things, you are getting frequencies now. You are counting per sex. How many were males? How many were How many were females? And then can I read marital status? Tagwenda. How many were married? How many were How many were single? You can count or counter. And you are now counting. How many were married? How many were Per level of education, you can also do the same. Then these are the frequencies, the two. Then Mukati, these are the percentages. That's when we say, when we are going to be analyzing our data, we are going to be use frequencies. Those are counts. Change it as a change counter. Then and you see, then this one is the percentage, and which is 50%. So it depends with your data. You can also draw. You can also, I'm trying to figure out how you can do this, but you can also draw graphs and for your things. Let's say I'm trying to figure out how to do it, which variable I can use to draw graphs. You can draw pie charts, and I'm trying to think, for example, you count how many primary, and so you can say like this. Primary, primary, there are how many primary? 1, 2, 2 no primary. Then secondary, how many? Secondary. We are now summarizing. Remember, one thing I need to also to show you. So you can put your results by narrating, which means you are writing. But out of your study participants, and out of your study participants, you write whatever you're writing, either this, or you can put percentages or frequency, or you can put, like in this case, this is our level of education. We can summarize our level of education in a table, and that's another way in which you can present your results, which means you're now summarizing primary, secondary, and tertiary, and so tertiary. So this is the total number. This is the total number. Total number. So this is the frequency. Whatever you put your table. So primary, there were how many? 1, 2. The count that. So 2 for primary. Secondary, 1. Tertiary, 1. And so I can put a percentage also in this thing, and in my table. I can say, usually when you're writing your table, you can say N, and in brackets, you put a percentage. You put a what? You put a percentage. So like in this case, or 2. These are what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2, that's 50%, and it means that's 50%. That is 50 what percent. Then out of the total, it becomes what? 25%. I hope you understand this. Then this one, it also becomes 25 what percent. 1 4. 2 what do primary. So it means 2 over 4. That's 50%. And so that's your table, which you are drawing. Then we can put your total. Most of the table, total. So when we do number 4, then in brackets, that's 100%. So this is an example of a simple table. This is an example of a simple table in which you can present your which you can present your results, which you can present your results, and then this is the total number of people. This is the total number of people. So my heading a table, no bolder, and then per total you also bold. So this is an example of a table which showing out of those who were in primary, out of those our study participants, watching it now, 2 were from primary. So we can simplify again, write your table. Then my table essay can write a table. A table, it should have what can I say? It should have a title. I'm sorry. So table number 1. And so level of what you put your level of education. That's the title for your table. So you put it nicely. You put it Sakanaka. I'm sorry. And it now shows your table. It now shows you what's your table number 1. So first, this is an example on which you can present your things as I said, you can present your things as by writing continuous, or you can put, it depends. And you can add things like age. You need a maximum, you need a mean, you need an average, you need a range, and this you can use to present my values are continuous. Then canary my values are categorical, and which is like anima, like these ones. You can count, and what you count is your frequency. Then you can also put percentages or proportions of whatever you're counting. Then you come up with this. Or you can present your things, your results as a table. This is how we present your things as a table. Every table, you can then write you can write a few sentences about the table, explaining the table. 50% were in primary, 25% were in secondary, blah 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 blah, and write your things. You can also present so this is level of education, and which we have presented. This is level of education which we have presented. Then the next thing which you might need, I'll do it here. I will do it here, which is marital status. So these are marital status, so that I don't see. So our marital status, we are now counting married, and married. So I put my married, then single, then maybe divorced. So I'm not going to put the correct variables, but I'll put my variable in. Let's say married, white one, maybe 10 were married. Single, there were 5. Divorced, there are maybe 11. And you can present these things as a graph or as a pie chart. You can present as you can present as a graph or as a pie chart. For example, this one, that's an example of a pie chart. So that's a pie chart. That's a graph, and where you're presenting your things, where you're presenting your, those who are married, and you can present it as a pie chart. So it clearly shows married is this, single is this, divorced is this. That's another example. You can present your marriage as a what? As a graph. There are several types of graphs which you can use, and you can use like a bar chart, like a bar graph. That's the commonest thing which you can use. Okay, so this is an example of a thing, and of something of the same information presented as a gym, presented as a graph. As a married, they were this, single, they were this, divorced, they were gym, they were this. And so that's it. So you can change all these things and put your chart title. This is what usually my chart title. This is the figure. So there can be a figure one. What is your figure one? Your figure one is about marital status. Marital status. Then, so usually when you are labeling your figures, and we always recommend putting, you can put it on top, that's fine. Yeah. Usually my heading, my title, my figure, and then the past figure. So this becomes your figure for marital status, which is a pie chart. Or it can be it can be a bar graph, whatever you choose to draw. So I hope you're understanding what I'm trying to say. With data analysis, first you have your questionnaire. You have your questionnaire. You then get these questionnaires. You enter them into a database. Then from that database, you can then start analyzing. You analyze your thing depending. If your values are like age, whatever, you can do your average, your minimum, your maximum, your range, and all those things which are there. If your things are categorical like this one, you can count. As you count, you can present your things as frequencies. And the frequency, what was the total after counting? Then you can put a percentage. And by just writing, or you can write your things as what? You can write your thing as what? You can write your thing as a table. And this is an example of a table. And for tables, you put a heading Pamsoro, or you can put it as a figure. For figure, you can put pie charts, you can put bar graphs. There are so many other figures which you can put in. As I said, I'm not here to teach you how to use my Excel. If you want to know how do you create these figures with Excel, then you can do that. Then the other thing which I didn't include here, usually when you are doing a research, you have your variables. One of the variables, we call it an outcome. We call it an outcome, and it's an outcome variable. When you are doing it, like in this case, we wanted to say the risk of getting corona. So you might need to say, it depends with your study. Maybe you are doing a study about stigma, adherence, viral suppression, retention in care, whatever you'll be studying. And at the end of the day, you want to see the relationship between your other variables. And usually we call them independent or exposure variables, and with the outcome variable. Like in this case, our outcome variable, our outcome variable might be getting corona. That's our outcome. This next stage of analysis is a bit complex. It's a bit It's a bit complex. So we say akawana corona, wakawana corona, yes. Wakawana corona, yes. We are going to corona, no. Maybe let me just say, but no. We are not going to corona, which is no. We are going to corona, yes. We are not going to corona, which is no. And that's the outcome. At the end of the day, we want to see now, in terms of sex, and how was sex related with getting corona? How is marital status related in getting corona? How is level of education related with getting corona? And which means you can do one variable by one variable. And it is a bit complex for you to do these things, but you should find a way of doing it, because that's the whole purpose. That's the whole purpose why we do research, because we want to see who is like, we want to do descriptive, we want to describe who is likely to get an outcome, who is likely to get treatment failure. Or we're comparing who is likely to get viral poor adherence. Are those who are married or are those who are single? Which means you then need to analyze now your outcome to say my outcome is corona. And you want to see the relationship of that, which, remember, I always say risk factors associated with what, or I want to assess factors associated with, and whatever you want to assess, that is your outcome variable. You then want to see what is the relationship of that outcome variable with your independent or exposure variables. So in this case, my thing is about what? Is about corona. So there's a way which you can do it, where you can count to see. I don't know how you can do it for yourself, but for me, there's a way I do it, and I can put a filter. Then I want to see. So I can select and say I want to only have those who had corona, which is corona yes. So that now. So corona yes 1, 2, and then I can count in terms of getting corona yes, how many were they, and how many were female. So from this I can say out of the four on the end now, and I have removed others. I have counted out of the 4 I had. 2 of them were married. They got corona. Then out of the 4, yes, they were sharing, and they were sharing a toilet. So from there, actually, I can actually count, and to say out of the 4 people, and out of the 4 people, 2 of them they got what? They had corona and they were sharing, which means sharing was a risk factor of getting corona, or sharing was something which was likely to cause corona. The same it applies with marital status, and but out of those 2, out of the 4, 50% had corona, and so marital status can be a risk factor or something which might cause people getting corona. The same with sex. So I don't want to complicate this thing for you and how you do these things. But at the end of the day, you need to compare now. What are your first thing, your age, your level of education, how many are they? What you then need to do, as I said, you need to know, to see your reasons, or and in high language we call them your associations now. You want to find a way of describing these 2 things now, and you want to describe the associations. At least could you remember, as I said, we want to see the relationship between maybe sex and getting corona, which means sex and corona, or we want to see the relationship between sharing and corona. We want to see the relationship between maybe level of education, and of education and corona, and all these things. I won't go into it, but find a way of. It might not be easy to do it, but I think I showed you. You can use filters, and if you know how to use these things, you can count now. Out of corona, how many were males, how many were females? If the percentage of males is higher than percentage of female, you can actually say there's a relationship, and there's an association, or there's a relationship of getting corona if you're a female. So the same applies. In your studies, maybe your associations might be with treatment failure, with high viral load, with poor adherence, with what. And try to have that analysis now. Usually, you can show it as graphs, you can show it as a table, you can show it as frequencies, or whatever by count. It depends with your variable. This is most important, because that's why we do research. And we do research because we want to see the reasons, and we want to see That's why I always say, insist, when you're doing a research, there's no way you can do a research without putting demographic factors. You need demographic factors, because you need to, these demographic factors will then assist you now to see, and this, to find your associations of your demographic factors and your risk factors or whatever, or your, some of your variables. But if you then know that, you can then implement preventative measures. And if you know, good people who are sharing, they were at more risk of getting corona, it means you can then put interventions to make sure people, they don't share. And if those with the lower level of education were more likely of getting corona, you can then make sure on a lower level of education, they are educated, they know, and they know how to operate, and they are given more information so that they don't get corona. So I think in a nutshell, this is what we call quantitative data analysis. It's a bit complex. I don't want to make it complex for you, but at least that's the starting point for you to understand. When you say you're analyzing your data, this is how you're analyzing your data. So I will try to recap these processes so that you understand my process and data, which are very important for you, and which are very important for you. So first step, what is the first step? First step, you have your questionnaire. You collect your questionnaire information and from your study participants, from whoever you're going to study. You change your questionnaire and the questions into a database. Into a database, question by question, question by question. You then capture your questionnaire, all of them, and all of your questionnaires. This one. Then from your questionnaire, you start describing, which is descriptive statistics now, and you start counting variable by variable. You look variable by variable, age, sex, marital status, level of education, and you're describing what was the age, what was the sex, what was the level of education, and what was whatever variables you have. You can present your things using my mean, my max, my average, or my range, or you can put your number using my frequency and my percentage, or you can present as a table. I show you how to do a table. Or you can draw my graphs, and I give you an example of a graph, either a bar chart or a pie chart. There are so many other graphs which you can. Then the last thing you need to do is to find relationships. Honestly, if I say reasons, no, that's not correct. The correct thing is you want to see relationships for variables. It's you who know. It depends with your study. You choose the relevant relationships for you to assess, depending on your G, because that's the whole purpose of doing research. Because you want to see relationships between variables. Because if you know the relationship between variables, you can then put what preventative measures. You can also present your relationships in bar graphs, and by sentences, by tables, or by graphs. And how do you plan your relationship is with your outcome? What exactly you are looking at? That's how you present your relationships. So I think this one is enough to introduce you to data analysis. So I think this is fine. This is enough, just an introduction. And I think you should be able to really analyze. Most of your data is not complicated. Based on this, on these basics, you should be able to analyze your data.